Hello, welcome again once more as we are going to look onto matters testing versus tempting. Hebrews 2 verse 18 says, For him that himself suffered, being tempted, is able to aid those who are tempted. God himself, Jesus himself suffered, he was tempted, and is able to aid those who are being tempted also. The book of James 1 verse 17 says, James 1 verse 17 says that, 1 verse 13, James 1 verse 13, let no man say when he is tempted that I am tempted of God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempt he any man. But every man is tempted when he is dragged away of his own lust and enticed. Then the lust, after hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin. And the sin, when it is finished, bring forth death. What is temptation? Temptation is being enticed or being allured to sin. Temptation is being enticed to sin. God can't tempt us with sin because he is good and no evil is found in him. James 1 verse 13. God can't tempt us with sin because he is good and no evil is found in him. On the other hand, testing is God trusting us to make the right choice. Testing is God trusting us to make the right choice. So tests are trials used by God to test and grow our faith. Temptation is the way the devil tries to trip you up and destroy you. So there's a difference between testing and tempting. Whereas tests are trials used by God to test and grow our faith, temptations is the way the devil tries to trip you up and destroy you. If the devil causes something to happen, it is temptation, while if God causes, it is a test. The goal of temptation is to harm the individual at least here and now, and preferably permanent. Temptation, when conceived, brings destruction of relationship, harm to the body, mind, and an estrangement for God. For example, Eve ate the forbidden fruit, and the devil gained access to the world and our hearts. Eve was tempted, and when he was tempted, when he gave in to temptations, when he ate the fruit which God had forbidden him to eat, the devil gained access to the world and in our hearts too. Number 2, under the deceiving effect of power, lack of accountability, and sexual desires, David took Bathsheba and slayed her husband, leading to untold war throughout his kingdom family. We remember the story of David. Due to the deceiving effect of power, he had power, a lot of power, and lack of accountability, and the sexual desires. David took Bathsheba. After he took Bathsheba, he slayed his husband. And we are told after he slayed his husband, there are consequences of this sin. So we are being told that if temptation, when they come, they will bring destruction and they will harm the relationship of the body and the mind and estrangement from God. This relationship, this temptation which David has committed, it has ruined the relationship between him and God. If the relationship was ruined between him and God because he acknowledged to obey the serpent rather than God. Number 3, fearing for his life possibly, his reputation, Peter denied Jesus, fulfilling a beautiful prophecy uttered only a few hours prior to reading his own guilty. We remember what Peter did. Peter denied Jesus, and when he denied Jesus, the reason behind denying Jesus was fearing of his own life or of his reputation. How does God test? In the book of Exodus, we are being told, Exodus 16 verse 4, God tested Israel by giving them manna on the Sabbath schedule. So he gave them the manna on the Sabbath to see whether they will trust in him. The book of Exodus 16 verse 4 says, Exodus 16 verse 4 says, Exodus 16 verse 4 says, Exodus. Then said the Lord unto Moses, Behold, I will rain bread from the heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather certain rate every day, that I may prove them whether they will walk in my laws or not. So God wanted to test the Israelites whether they will walk in his laws or not. Number two, the entire wilderness experience. God tested the Israelites during the entire wilderness experience. And the goal of God's testing is clear, to know what is in our hearts, whether we keep his commandments or not. The goal of God's testing is clear, to know what is in our hearts, whether we keep his commandments or not. Instead of harm, the goal of testing is to provide a correct perception of oneself, to deepen dependency and trust in God, and show how trustworthy God really is. It is true that God doesn't tempt us, but he tests us. The purpose of temptation is for the devil to destroy, but the purpose of testing is for God's hand to build and preserve us. It is true that God doesn't tempt us, but he tests us. The purpose of temptation is for the devil to destroy, but the purpose of testing is for God's hand to preserve and build us. The book of 1 Corinthians 10 verse 13, it says, First Corinthians 10 verse 13. There hath no temptation taken you but such as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that ye are able, but with the temptation also make a way to escape, that he may be able to bear it. God gives us the temptation which we can bear, and the temptation which he gives us to build our faith upon him, and he gives us the way to succeed from our temptations. John 3 verse 16, For God so loved the world, that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. So here we have an option to believe in God so that we can have everlasting life. God doesn't send trials though he may permit them to shape us. God doesn't send trials though he may permit them to shape us. The book of 1 Peter 4 verse 12 to 19. God doesn't send temptation, but he is a source to defeat our temptations. God doesn't send temptation, but he is the source to defeat our temptation. Satan can't make you sin. He can't control mind unless they are yielded to his control. Satan can't make you sin. He can't control minds unless they are yielded to his control. Some people may say, oh, it is Satan who has made me to do this. It is Satan who has made me to sin, to do this and this. Remember that Satan can't make you to sin unless we give our mind to control, and if we give our mind to Satan so that he can control them. It is us to accept Satan to control our lives. But Satan can't make us to sin. But Satan entices us, and when we are enticed, we go in and sin ourselves. Matthew 4 verse 10. There will and must be a constant. Faith must let go its hold upon Christ before Satan exercises his power on us. So we must let it go. The faith which we have upon Jesus Christ, we must let it go before Satan exercises his power upon us. Every sin we cherish gives Satan a chance to defeat us. Every sin we cherish gives Satan a chance to defeat us. Which sin do you cherish in your life? Remember, call the sin by its name. Don't say that it is a small sin. No small sin in the eyes of God. No matter the sin is small, if we cherish it, we give Satan a chance. Remember, Adam and Eve, they thought that the eating of the forbidden fruit was a small thing. But remember, the thing which they thought that was a small, it is the one which has caused suffering on the earth. It is the one which caused death upon all the world. Which sin do you cherish more? God is here to give us a way through our temptation. Believe in Him, trust in Him, and you shall receive eternal life.